Welcome to worship with the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. My name is Reverend Jennifer Innis. It is my great joy to be the minister with this congregation in all ages and all seasons of life. It is yet another beautiful sunny autumn day. Hallelujah. Yes. This is a beloved community striving to live into its mission of embracing freedom, loving wholeheartedly, growing in mind, body, and spirit, and adding to the wholeness and the healing of the world. We are unapologetically progressive in advocating and welcoming people of all ethnicities and races, sexual orientation and gender identities, politics, social and economic situations and abilities. We strive to be good stewards of this earth, and we advocate for human rights. In living this mission, we recognize that we are part of a larger network of relationship. This is the ancestral home of the Peoria people. They and other nations were here long before the first European settlers came down the Illinois River. We honor the Peoria people in worship. We always honor them for who they were and for who they are today. I want to thank folks for joining us in person and online. One of the great lessons of the past few years is how good it is to come together, to be with other people, and to keep expanding our circles of care and kindness. So if you are new to us, please help us get to know you. We have plenty of name tags and very helpful and wonderful greeters. And also I want to invite folks to stay after the service for visiting in coffee hour, on the patio, in fellowship hall. Also, please stay in the Zoom room. You can visit there as well if you're online. And I want to, at this point, as we're entering into worship, invite folks to turn your respective devices to worship mode. That helps us kind of keep track and focus of our service today. I have a note about the service today. One, that much of the idea and many of the materials for today's service comes from the Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice. This is a largely volunteer effort to be an advocating voice for values and civil rights in Washington, D.C. This is kind of how we show up as one of the organized bodies for how we show up in our nation's capital. So I want to thank the Reverend Peggy Clark and the Reverend Kristen Graschel Schmidt for creating the bulk of the body of the different elements for the service today, including Reverend Peggy Clark for the sermon, which I get to deliver. Looking forward to that. This effort, this kind of Power Sunday, is the first in an effort from the UUs for Social Justice to boost our awareness of and commitment to and feel empowered in creating a more democratic society. I also want to offer a note that after service today, we'll be having drumming in the sanctuary about 12 noon. You can bring your own instruments or use what is provided. People will gather down front. I have a special request, a special notice, that on Saturday, crossing the fingers for the weather, on Saturday, that we will hold our third annual Haunted Forest. Volunteers will transform the patio and the trails into a larger-than-life haunted experience for this holiday season, and we hand out candy. In fact, we need candy. Last year, we had about 500 people come through the Haunted Forest. I'm still kind of impressed by that number. That was a lot of people. It was a great night. It was perfect weather. And at this moment, our Facebook event has over 1,000 people interested in the event. Ooh, this could be big. So, we need your help with providing some candy to hand out. If you'd like to go pick up an extra bag or two at the store this week and drop it off at the church, that would help enormously. Or Saturday afternoon as people are getting set up. And also, if you think you'd like to do a little Halloween decorating, a little outside Halloween decorating, there's lots of different stretches of the forest that need a little boost. You're welcome to come and do that as well. Fine, ask me, ask Jesse Laughlin. We can figure out kind of where to add a little bit of light and spookiness and fun. All right. And also, next Sunday is our annual service of remembrance. I want to invite folks, you're welcome to bring photos, mementos of those you are remembering in your heart who are no longer with us in body. And folks are welcome to bring those kinds of things. We'll add them to the table that we create for the service together. And I do want to point out, lastly, in general, just check out the announcements. Because we have some great social action, social justice opportunities at the beginning of November, and I don't want you all to miss that. All right. And let us continue. We enter into service with our opening hymn, number 1018, Come and Go With Me. Please rise in body or spirit. I'd like to invite Mary Mahalan Kafar for our opening words.
Our opening words today are by the Reverend Christian Gosling Smith. Spirit of life who knows us each by name, yet is beyond all naming, grounding of being, always changing, always becoming, out on the cusp between what is and what could be. Spirit of becoming in this hour we spend together, remind us of how far we've come, how far love and justice are calling us to go. Come, let us worship together.
I'd like to invite the Franklin family forward for our chalice lighting.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, good. I wasn't sure. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it's our favorite, and hopefully you guys like it too. We are going to do the We Are. So we will do it through once, and then we'll all do it together. That way our friends who are new or haven't done it in a while can be reminded how we do it. So we are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the loving heart. This is the church of the helping hands. This is our church. So please join me. We're all going to do it together. How do we start it? Oh gosh. We are Unitarian Universalists. This is the church of the open mind. This is the church of the loving heart. This is the church of the helping hands. This is our church. Good job.
All right.
Will you be with me? Will you see me through? When the world is harsh, can I count on you? We have come this far, now it's up to you to be there. I stood up for you, knowing I might never have the chance to show my heart in ways that others learn to take for granted. And now I am asking you, will you be with me? Will you see me through? When the world is harsh, can I count on you? We have come this far, now it's up to you to be there. For this you don't understand. You ask why I feel so strongly about holding up this love in front of everyone around me, because I am asking you, will you be with me? Will you see me through? When the world is harsh, can I count on you? We have come this far, now it's up to you to be there. For this every day we're beaten up or killed for simply showing that we've reached inside ourselves and found the deepest love we've ever known. Can we depend on you? Will you be with me? Will you see me through? When the world is harsh, can I count on you? We have come this far, now it's up to you to be there. Will you be with me? Will you see me through? When the world is harsh, can I count on you? We have come this far, now it's up to you to be there. For this for this
Emma's Revolution is one of our most excellent Unitarian Universalist groups, and we really appreciate the gift of their music and of Silver Spring UU congregation for their music as well. Let us take this time together to be open to forgiveness and to be forgiven. Let us be open to diversity and be accepted. Let us be open to expression and be understood. Let us be open to compassion and be loved. Let us be open to awareness and be known. Let us be open to sharing, to exchange, to possibility, to awakening, and be hopeful. Let us be open to gratitude and be blessed. Let us be open to this time of reflection. During our Music for Meditation, you're welcome to come forward and light a candle for what is in your mind and on your heart. We hold this time of meditation and music together. From my colleague, the Reverend Christian Schmidt. Spirit of life and love, of justice, of service, the mystery that some people call God. Be with us in this time, as people suffer, as parents grieve, as violence rages. Be with us who feel the pain of loss, who feel anger at injustice. Be with the oppressed and change the heart of the oppressor, for we both know that we are joined in their humanity, no matter how often we forget it. Help us remember the hope we had, the hope we have, and the hope we will have. Help us remember joy in the midst of sadness, success in the midst of challenge, and good things in the midst of bad. Help us to be better people, to work for better things, and to create a better world. In the Spirit, we share the joys and sorrows of the congregation. I want to offer a note of thanks to everybody who contributed and participated in the trunk or treat that this congregation held yesterday in the parking lot. There was fun and families and costumes, and I think Lindy Peterson keeps getting like the award for like the most subtle and most effective. Come next year and see what happens next year if you haven't been there yet. Okay. I want to offer a note of prayer for health and well-being. I have a wish for a member's friend, Orlando, who is suffering with major kidney issues. Let us extend our circle of care to Orlando and all who know them, that they may be well. Let us take one more moment of quiet, knowing there's so much in our minds and on our hearts. There's so much in the joy as well as the struggle. Let us take one more moment of quiet and gather in this time. And I invite you to breathe with me. Amen, shalom, and shalom. Let me invite Jesse Laughlin forward for our story today.
Unitarian Universalism is a living and changing faith. We evolve. Being a living and changing faith means that any one of us in particular can change what we believe. If we experience a deeper truth that is different or new. But in order to change, our minds have to be open to new ideas, new experiences. That's harder than it sounds. The Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice want us to remember our ability to change and grow and to be strong voices in our world. Today, we'll hear a story about a congregation that made a big change a long time ago. They worked with others in their church to make this change. Jessica York, one of our Unitarian Universalist educators, has a version of this story that's in our records, and I'll be telling it today. About 75 years ago, when most faith communities in the United States were segregated, segregation was a way that our country kept people of different races separate and away from one another. Some churches kept Black people separate from white people, some because of state law, some because that's how it had always been done, and some because, well, that's what everyone else was doing. But in 1948, the first Unitarian Society in Chicago was still segregated, even though their church was in a neighborhood where people of all different colors lived together. Only the white people were allowed to go to that church. One day, a large group of church members wanted the church to welcome people of all races. They said, "Let everyone come." And the church's minister, Reverend Leslie Pennington, and Reverend James Luther Adams were both ready to do this big change. Adams was a very famous minister, and he was on that congregation's board. So Adams and Pennington talked to the congregation and said, "We should welcome more people." Most of the church said, yeah, let's do that. We can do that. But one member said no. One member said, "You've made a decision that ending segregation is the right thing, and you've made that for all of us, but that's not what I think." So they talked, and they argued, and they talked some more, because they're Unitarian Universalists. And then, when everybody was very tired and nobody was moving, Reverend Adams remembered, sometimes it's best to listen twice as much as you talk. So Reverend Adams asked the board member, "What do you say is the purpose of this church?" And the board member was challenged to think. What was the purpose of the church? "Okay, Jim, the purpose of this church is to get a hold of people like me and change them." And that's the story of how the first Unitarian Society of Chicago was successfully desegregated. In our world now, we face a lot of problems. And sometimes we seem stuck with my side and your side and my side. And we feel like we're never going to find a way to solve our problems. But sometimes the way forward is by asking a thoughtful question and listening to the answers. Not by bullying one another, not through coercing one another, but by staying at the table and refusing to be quiet when we see injustice. And by remembering how much we want to be the church of the open minds and the loving hearts and the helping hands. The kids are invited to join me as we head back for religious education today.
Part of the great power that we have in Unitarian Universalism is that every congregation is committed kind of to itself and to sustaining and creating and enlivening its ministries. And we do that in large part because of all that the members and friends of the congregation contribute to make this possible. In fact, it really just rests on the members and friends and all of the gifts that we offer, all that has been given in the past and all that is given now and what will come in the future. And in that spirit, we receive a collection during our gathering in worship that we may be reminded of the value of what we offer, the value of what we give, and to make a tangible act to do so. So in the spirit, we will be taking up our offering. I also want to let folks know that we practice sharing our plate, which means that 1/3 of our undesignated offering goes to a local recipient doing wonderful service in our community, and 2/3 goes to the congregation's operating. So for this month, our recipient is Lula. They are a nonprofit, pretty much all volunteer run, work with some other partners in the community. They provide water and tents and hand warmers and basic hygiene items to those who are unhoused or have kind of housing insecurity or food insecurity. So we want to do our best to offer our support to those who are some of the most vulnerable in our community. And I want to just invite you to be generous. A little bit of donation really makes an enormous difference in what Lula offers into our world. And now, if you'd like to make a donation, please do so. We'll receive the ushers will pass the plates, and we'll be also in gathering for quiet during our offering. Now, will the ushers please come forward? Our reading for today is a meditation, and it's somewhat of an embodied invitation created by the late Elandria Williams, one of our Black Unitarian Universalist elders that was gone from us far too soon. All right, I invite you to be present, get comfortable, close your eyes if that works for you, but breathe in and breathe out. When you hear the word liberation, liberatory spirit, liberatory life, liberatory possibilities, what does that conjure in your soul? When you hear, we are the liberating force, spirit, light, and love, what does that conjure in your spirit? When you hear that we have the power to transform the world around us, what does that mean in your bones? When you hear, we are the people we have been waiting for, we are, how does that feel in your blood? We are the light. We are the wisdom. We are the ancestors. We are those yet to come. How do we fully hold all of that in ourselves? Open your eyes if they are closed. Look at the people around you. And know that we can hold all of this together. Let me invite you to rise in body or spirit for hymn number 1017, Building a New Way. Please be seated. So the beginning of the sermon today is written by the Reverend Peggy Clark of the Community Unitarian Universalist Church in New York City, board chair of the UUs for Social Justice. She begins with a perspective of her own. TikTok may say that men think about the Roman Empire daily. Have you heard of this? There's this thing on TikTok that says men think about the Roman Empire daily. But it's the American empire that has my attention. Mirroring the innocence of the mid and late 20th century, I grew up believing that the United States is the best nation that ever existed. And that opinion came from my white immigrant family, grateful largely for the opportunity and freedom of economic prosperity. But over time, democracy has begun to fade. And whether or not children are told this is the best nation in the history of nations doesn't alter our current downward trajectory. As much as we'd like to say we've been a democracy since 1776, or maybe from the ratification of the Constitution in 1788, we've mostly been a democracy in progress until the full realization of our potential came with the passing of the Civil Rights Act in 1965. With the codification of inclusion at the ballot box, the United States became worthy of the admiration of democracies, both realized and struggling around the world. Our system of government, standing on a strong foundation of law, had the full support of our nation's people and our institutions, creating what we thought was an unbreakable network, ensuring equal access to our founding promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But as we approach the 60th anniversary of that peak moment, most Americans are aware that our democracy is on a downward slide. There are many key markers that support this suspicion, including our decline in the Polity Index that moved us below the threshold of full democracy in recent years. And our President, Joe Biden, warned us just a few weeks ago that democracy is at risk, and that the threat to our institutions and our Constitution is serious, noting extremism and increasingly disturbing threats of violence against our leaders. But we don't really need a scholar or even the president to tell us what we can see and hear for ourselves. The words chaos and dysfunction and infighting have become common in our national headlines as our government grinds to a halt over and over again, and it's happening right now. Strong, healthy democracies require what we call civil society. Civil society consists of all the voluntary organizations where people gather, autonomous from the state. These groups might have some state support, funding, or interaction, but they are independent of state controls and have their own agendas and goals. They are concerned with public ends, but they aren't seeking state power. They exist for many reasons, but one is to influence law and culture and the ways we live together. They are part of a larger piece of our community living and valuing pluralism, valuing inclusion, and a wide range of life experience and thought. And the organizations that populate civil society include educators. We love great educators, right? Who advocate for curriculum development to train the next generation of thinkers and leaders. They are climate activists who push against corporate interests, and librarians. Let's give it up for the librarians, right? Yes! Who ensure access to a diversity of ideas and workers who leverage their collective power to ensure fair wages and protections. Civil society includes museums. Oh, baby, the museums. To preserve our history, that celebrate creativity. Dance companies that honor and rejoice in self-expression and storytelling. Community theaters. Oh, we love the community theaters here, right? Where new philosophies are given live language with an audience. Cults. Cults are part of civil society because they want to separate people from the mainstream. And as much as a yoga group is a good thing, they generally don't qualify in this kind of category because they're not influencing public life. But churches, congregations, religious institutions, on the other hand, they do belong in this category. So do all of our Unitarian Universalist organizations, such as Ministry for the Earth, our state social action networks, including Unitarian Universalist Network in Illinois, and the Unitarian Universalist for social justice, they are our UU voice on the Hill in Washington, D.C. All of these institutions are part of the fabric of civil society, without which we don't have an authentic democracy. Scholars tell us that democracies don't collapse because of a single influential person. They collapse because the people who, well, frankly, should know better, align themselves with stronger, more dangerous personalities. They themselves aren't fascists, communists, or extremists, but they're just rather weakly committed to democracy and ultimately want to go for what they're in it for, who say what they need or think to keep power. Civil society is one of the major levers that keeps those folks in check. And groups that are themselves run democratically, giving everyone the experience of having a voice and a vote, with deep membership rosters and concerned, engaged citizens, or public forums for open discussion, those become counterbalancing to self-serving individuals. These organizations create occasions for influence and can reward opportunists with popularity or power without requiring them to compromise their commitment to democratic systems. Those who might be tempted can be bolstered by a healthier system. They can also, these groups can create and engage systems of social accountability to keep folks in check. Totalitarian nations have no civil society. Remember earlier this month I talked about fascism. This is a follow-on. The more civil society in a country, the more democratic it can be. There are very few fully totalitarian nations in this time, but we can see systems of government increase as the civil society decreases. North Korea is completely totalitarian with no visible counter to the current government. China used to be more complete, but civil society has been growing there. Or when a nation such as Russia want to increase governmental control, they shut down parts of civil society, as does every autocrat seeking to consolidate their power. Voluntary organizations are a crucial part of any healthy, transparent, and legitimate democratic system. We can determine the vitality of a democracy by the integration of these groups in the fabric of a nation. So faith-based, here's where it's kind of fun, faith-based organizations are historically some of the most difficult to terminate because they are often seen as the moral centers of the community. We are very hard to kill. Yes, that's a strength, right? Shutting down faith communities forces the government to admit a lack of concern with morality, an act most citizens find alarming, even still today. Indeed, many authoritarian regimes work to befriend religious institutions, which is always an interesting conversation, right? They seek to align with religious power centers and with their own. And we can see this happening in the United States with evangelical churches who have become supporters of some of the most dangerous factions in our current system. So this makes our own position as a liberal religious institution all the more necessary in our current political climate. We are needed. And we continue to have moral authority to counter the current trajectory and can stand against the wave of conservative religious alignment with radical right-wing political movements. Our existence, our internal health, and our strength is a movement. It's part of our, what can be turning the tide in the democratic legitimacy in this country. It is our witness to pluralism and the embrace of science as a source of truth, our own democratic structures, our collective voice for choice, for education, for inclusion, and our training of new people to be leaders demonstrate that the need of our witness and centrality of our voice as part of civil society right now at this moment. We are doing it and we are needed, and we are here. But we're doing this in a moment that's, every moment feels like it's the most difficult in history, but I'm going to say this is hard. This one is hard. Because we are in a moment when religion is in such a deep and steep decline in American culture. Across the country, our Unitarian Universalist congregations have seen such a dramatic reduction in membership. We've lost 18,000 children from our religious education programs in the last decade. We've lost 100,000 members in the last 50. In 2020, the average size of a UU congregation was half the size of 20 years earlier. And we're not alone. We're not alone in these kind of numbers. In fact, we've actually been not as bad as some. And because so many denominations are in something of a free fall as religious influence declines in national influence. But as that influence declines, so does American democracy. And these things aren't unrelated. Just as people are turning away from institutional religion, the demons of authoritarianism are gaining ground. We usually don't talk about demons, but we can name this one here, yeah. When moral centers lose influence and can no longer claim to be our collective conscience, it's easier for alternatives to take root. And our voices get weaker and are harder to hear. And we're afraid for our friends and our families and for ourselves. But I will also offer that we are still here. There are close to 200,000 people in our Unitarian Universalist congregations. About 1 million people, based on latest surveys, still claim Unitarian Universalism. That's a fascinating number. Whether or not they're in our churches, people still claim to be from this place. We've not given up our place at the table or moral authority, even if the tide of totalitarianism is aiming to wash over all of us. And this is shown, at the very least, by our desire to have conversations about democracy. Part of what motivated me to say yes to this service, these materials today, is because of what the book group, one of the book groups was studying earlier this fall, and said we need to have a conversation about democracy. And we are just starting that in this moment. And many other Unitarian Universalist congregations across the country are making use of this particular resource as we are, and will bring that into their congregations over the course of this fall. We are interdependent, interconnected, and committing to holding up our share, to doing our part in support of liberal values. Part of what happens when we feel the impact of decline, we feel the impact of systems that would take power away, that would be more totalitarian in practice and in spirit, is how isolating that can be. But I want to say we are not alone. None of us are. Power Sunday comes from Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice. It was founded originally as a circle of Unitarian Universalist congregations in the Washington, D.C. area. They wanted to leverage their geographic influence to influence the federal conversation. And about 2 years ago, the UUs for Social Justice broke out of that model and opened up to folks from around the country to become and add to our collective voice. Not just those who are geographically close to DC, but everybody can add to that voice. And the social justice group is small, no full-time staff, like so many of our Unitarian Universalist congregations and groups doing good work. But, as we have in so many other moments, we have an outsized influence in federal policy conversations. We are, as I've heard people say, my entire life in growing up in Unitarian Universalism, we are disproportionately influential. We keep showing up, and we keep being loud, even though in many ways there's not that many numbers among us. So this service is designed to help people remember and not be afraid to say, yeah, this is a hard moment, but also remember that we are connected and not alone, that we have this potential as a faith community, as any one congregation, as all the congregations, to work on our national conversations, to help our institutions to be part of civil society. And we're in need of support in this moment when democracy feels a little fragile. So in the future, this is the first of such Sundays. In the future, there'll be more opportunities for advocacy, more moments when we can act up. Scholars might tell us that American democracy is deconsolidating, but it is far from collapse. And even though there are significant challenges, enormous challenges, daunting challenges, the system is holding. Unitarian Universalists can step into moral authority in partnership with each other and other liberal members of our civil society, other partners in our civil society, still just simply in Peoria, and then go out from here. And through our connections with each other, we'll be building our collective power with the social justice folks. We're working on the Hill as a partner with other denominations, as a partner with other faith communities, faith coalitions, to hold back that tide of authoritarianism. We play a key role in keeping this democracy strong. So we are today, amongst many congregations, raising our shared consciousness, holding up our critical place in the democratic fabric of the nation, and tuning our collective voice, reminding Unitarian Universalists that we are necessary and that we are not alone. And in this delicate and difficult moment in American history, we are indeed powerful. We can indeed make a difference. Amen. Please rise and body with me for our closing hymn number 118, This Little Light of Mine. And we have the fire drill. If you hadn't seen, I know, thank you, Tim. Yes, that was our faux hymn listed in the order of service. So I want to say this is a drill. And for those online, this is effectively the end of the service. The worship is ended. May our service begin. Go in peace. Please do not startle or panic. This is only a drill. We're not turning on alarms. There'll be no loud sounds. If you have, but listen to instructions, please. If you have children in the religious education area, please let them know so the RE staff will have them exit the building as well, out to the upper parking lot. And so I'd like to invite you to pay attention for a moment here. If you are sitting in the first 3/4 or so, first half 3/4 of the sanctuary, I invite you to exit. This is where my flight attendant moment gets to be. Exit out of those 2 exit doors, the music door, or the worship supplies and music room. And if you are sitting in the north end of the sanctuary, please go out the sanctuary doors and exit the patio and exit the front doors. And I invite you to go down to the end of the parking lot and we'll gather in towards the memory garden. We want to practice getting away from the building to do so. And adults with children in religious education, leave by whatever exit you are close to, and then go to the upper parking lot. The teachers will make sure they have all the children accounted for before we let anybody go. And we really need you to go to the upper parking lot to collect your respective children. And you will hear, once we have cleared the building and we know the building is clear, and we know where all the children are, I will give an all clear, because I have a new toy. That's right. That's right. We tested it inside last night. I tell you, this is an outside instrument. Once the all clear is sounded, you are welcome to re-enter the building, come to Fellowship Hall for coffee hour, or join us later just afterwards in the sanctuary for drumming. Please use caution in the parking lot as we're going to have a lot of moving things happen. And so, thank you for your cooperation, and now let us begin. I invite you to exit and go forth, and we'll be out in the parking lot soon.